Elvis Aaron Presley. Ever heard of him? Some people would call him the greatest rock star of all time. Some people might even call him the King. My name is Chris King. This is Love Live Music. And today we're talking about the return of the King, the fall and rise of Elvis Presley, the 68 comeback special. This is a new documentary that's just landed on Netflix, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on it, kind of give you a little review, a little synopsis, and a little story about Elvis at the end. Elvis Presley, one of the greatest stars of our lifetime. I still wonder why they couldn't spell his name correctly on his gravesite at Graceland. That will always confuse me. We're talking about Return of the King, The Fall and Rise, the Netflix documentary. When I saw that it was coming out, I thought, man, I hope they don't stretch this out over like 3 episodes or 6 episodes. I was very pleasantly surprised that it was a concise 90-minute documentary. However, it takes them a while to get to the good subject matter. They really spend like the first half hour just catching you up on who Elvis is. Elvis used to play at the Louisiana Hayride back in 1954. He was discovered by Colonel Tom Parker, who at the time was managing Hank Snow. He saw Elvis and he took Elvis in under his wing. He had this idea to really concentrate on the merchandising of Elvis. At the time, no other rock star, pop star, anybody had any merchandising affectations other than Mickey Mouse. So Colonel Tom Parker really did his best to make sure that Elvis was a household name, and I would say he did a good job. So we spend 30 minutes on that. We get him up to he gets drafted, unfortunately, and man, has there ever been a bigger name drafted and taken away at the height of their career? Roger Staubach for the Dallas Cowboys had to go serve his time during the height of his popularity and then come back with a shortened NFL career. But really, this Elvis getting drafted into the Army thing, that's a big deal. He was very dangerous. He's considered dangerous in the mid-50s. And he goes off and he gets stationed in Germany, spends a lot of time out there. They say he's walking the night patrol. He's getting frostbite. The whole time he's over there, Colonel Tom Parker is steady releasing Elvis music because he was shrewd. Colonel Tom Parker, good or bad, he was a very shrewd businessman. And he had told Elvis before he got drafted that he needs to record a lot of stuff so that we've constantly got songs coming out. So Elvis continued to chart the whole time that he was stationed in Germany, which is a fascinating fact. So he gets out of the Army. This is like 1960, 61. Comes home. They have a great TV special for him. Frank Sinatra welcomes Elvis Presley home. And this kind of opened up the door. It kind of included Elvis into the club with Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. Kind of made him seem a little less dangerous from his early days and more, it was like royalty at this point. So what does royalty do? They sign a deal to do a bunch of movies. Before he does that, Elvis does one concert at the USS Arizona. This concert takes place in Honolulu in 1961. March of 1961, I believe. He plays in front of 4,000 people, and he kills it. Kills it, man. Boom. He doesn't perform live again until the 1968 comeback special. He really spends the next 7 years releasing a movie, releasing a soundtrack. Movie, soundtrack. At first, they would both go to number 1. They both go to number 1. Maybe they both go to number 1 or number 5, or maybe they're in the top 10. And now we've got the law of lessening returns happening. If you've ever seen Multiplicity with Michael Keaton, this is like a copy of a copy of a copy. They kept trying to replicate the success of the early movies, and it got to be less and less popular to the final point where they said Elvis is not a bankable movie star. They show us some content here of the 68 special. The idea was Elvis was less and less popular, and so Colonel Tom Parker thinks, man, back in the mid-50s, what I did was I put Elvis on every TV show, and Elvis exploded. So I'm going back to TV, and we're going to do this 68 comeback special, and it's going to be filled with comedy, and it's going to be filled with skits and maybe like some martial arts stuff and some crazy dancers, things of the times of '68. And that's how it was brought to NBC for this. So the producer gathers everybody together in June of '68, and they're going to start rehearsals for the '68 comeback special. And, they start putting it together, and they've got kind of these hokey skits, and it's not really that great. And, this is June of '68. You got to take into account that in April of '68, Martin Luther King Jr. died, assassinated. In June of '68, Robert F. Kennedy was assassinated. At the same time, we're going to the Vietnam War. People are burning their draft cards. There's a lot of political turmoil and unrest, and all this hokiness just doesn't feel right. And so Elvis, he practices his lines and he's getting frustrated. And there's a lot of good outtakes that you see. They last only mere moments. If you've watched it up to an hour at this point, you're like, I'd like to see more. But what they zero in on is the producers notice that after Elvis finishes up his taping, he goes back into the dressing room with his boys, and they're sitting around and they're playing some music. And it's kind of the stuff that Elvis grew up on. They can hear him in this dressing room, and they're playing, and the producer says, look, this is the real Elvis. He goes to Colonel Tom Parker. He says, let me record that. Colonel Tom Parker says, absolutely no way. I would never allow that to be filmed. They go back and forth for several days. Ultimately, Colonel Tom Parker says, look, we can recreate it on the stage, and I can't promise you that it will ever make it to NBC as the final product. But if you want to film it, you can film it. Go ahead. Well, they film it, and it's fantastic. If you've ever seen the '68 comeback special, Elvis is there. He's surrounded by a lot of really young people, like teenagers. And these people, if they were teenagers in '68, chances are they don't remember when he was the dangerous hound dog and Elvis from '56, '57. So they don't know how they're going to respond. He gets out there, man, and he just does his thing. He plays a lot of classics. That's All Right Mama, Hound Dog. What's the one? You got me running, you got me hiding, you got me any way you want me to go. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Baby, what you want me to do? He does that one, and he kills it, man, and everybody loves it. And there you go. At the end of the set, he comes back out. He's in the white suit. He's got the handheld microphone. They had written a song special for him. He was going to close the special with I'll Be Home for Christmas or something like that. And instead, they write him a special song, If I Can Dream. And he performs it in front of the big Elvis sign behind him that's all in red lights. And the lighting's cool. And he's wearing the suit. And he nails it, man. And that is such an iconic moment in popular American music history. Elvis, 1968 comeback special. The fall of Elvis, the rise of Elvis. It's on Netflix. I would say fast forward through that first hour, catch the last half hour, and you will enjoy it the way that I did. Elvis story time. Back in the day, my aunt, both of them, my Aunt Carly and my Aunt Sue, would go down to see Elvis perform at the Louisiana Hayride. And one night after the performance, my Aunt Carly walked up to my Aunt Sue, who was talking to a couple. And the couple says, well, what'd you think about the show? And my Aunt Carly says, I don't think he's as good looking as everybody says he is. Well, unfortunately, that was Elvis's parents that were talking to my other aunt. So there's your Elvis story. I'll never forget where I was on that day in August of 1977 in the back seat of Aunt Sue's car, driving to go get a sandwich in Little Rock, Arkansas. Elvis Presley, dead at 42. This is Love Live Music. I got to talk about a lot more stuff like this one right here that I watched the other day, I like to review. I like to talk about rock and roll. And if you like it, I would appreciate it if you would press that subscribe button. Chris King, Love Live Music.